Welcome back to the Progress Over Perfection podcast, where we talk to real people about real things involving weight loss, fitness, nutrition, and mindset. I'm your host, Ryan Johnson, and the show is produced by Josh Toller. If you haven't already, go ahead and add us wherever you listen to your podcast or subscribe to our YouTube channel so you get regular updates to the show. If you're interested in being a caller on the show, check out the link in the description. So, Carrie and I actually just got back from a cruise where we celebrated our 15th anniversary. We had an amazing time over the weekend, and I'm looking forward to sharing some of my insights from the cruise, some things that I am thinking about now that I am back to reality, and I look forward to sharing that stuff with you all. But first, let's take a moment for a brief word from the sponsor of today's episode. We'd like to thank today's sponsor, Premier Protein. If you've been following my journey for a while, you know how important it is for me to find simple and effective ways to get my protein in, especially with my busy lifestyle. That's where Premier Protein comes in. This isn't just any protein shake, it's been a game changer for me. I usually break my fast with one of these. Why? Well, it's packed with 30 grams of protein and it's low in sugar, making it the perfect first meal of the day for me. It keeps me full, fuels my muscle, and supports my recovery after workout. Plus, the taste, they're really good. I've always been a fan of their cafe latte flavor, but they've got a variety of options to suit any taste. It's like having a treat without the guilt. And for those of you who are always on the go like me, Premier Protein shakes are super convenient. Just grab one on your way out the door and you're set. So if you're looking to support your fitness goals and need a convenient, tasty way to up your protein intake, give Premier Protein a try. Trust me, your taste buds and your muscles will thank you. And remember, it's all about progress over perfection. Carrie and I just got back. We went on a 4-day cruise. We had an amazing time. And while the focus was absolutely on each other and just relaxing and spending time with one another, there are definitely some things that I am thinking about now as I reflect on in regards to being on a health and fitness journey. First and foremost, again, while I am going to share some insights about our time at sea and some things that I'm thinking about, know that the thing that has kept me consistent for as long as I have been, and one of the things that I recommend, is that you find ways to fit in your healthy habits that are not all consuming. So I'm going to share some tips, but understand that while we were on the cruise, thinking about how I stay consistent, we're not all-consuming thoughts. I was spending time with Carrie and we had a great time. But the first thing that kind of stood out to me that is different than previous cruises we've been on, it's been about 10 years since we've been on one. The first thing that I noticed was I ate very sensibly in that, especially talking about the quantities of food that I was eating. And I think part of the reason for that is I didn't show up to the cruise with the idea being, the point of this is to be able to eat as much as possible. Food was not the priority. And I think that is something that is a little different than where I have been in the past, especially when I was at my heaviest. My food thoughts were kind of all consuming, and an opportunity to go on a cruise where everything was all you could eat, I would go on it with the expectation of I am absolutely going to make the most of this. I'm going to earn my money back in the food. And that wasn't the case this time. Now, I did eat some incredible food, but there were also times where if something wasn't really good, I didn't eat it just because either. And I think that was probably my biggest highlight when it comes to health and nutrition on the cruise, was that I didn't eat to the point of excess. And I think if you think back to times in your life where you have eaten to excess, there are very few times where you look back and you think, I'm really glad that I did that, or I felt really good doing it. Because I know that is generally the case for myself, I went into this with the expectation of I'm just going to enjoy myself, and the plan isn't going to be to overeat. Not saying that you're not going to overeat and that's not going to ever happen, but that should never be the plan. That wasn't the plan for me this time. And as a result of that, I really just did enjoy myself. Now, one of the other things that I did on the cruise, out of the 4 days that we were there, 3 of them, I actually did partake in breakfast. Now, I am an intermittent faster. I am not an intermittent fasting zealot. It's not the only way to lose weight. It's my preferred method. But one of the reasons that I love intermittent fasting is because of the flexibility that it provides, whether or not you fast every day. That's not necessarily a requirement, and sometimes being so rigid can mess you up. This was a case where I do love a good Eggs Benedict. I did want to go and have breakfast with Carrie. So 3 out of the 4 days I did not fast. I had breakfast. It may have been a little later on some of the days, but I wasn't so rigid in my plan. I did make some adjustments. I tended to eat lighter lunches though, just because, again, the plan was not to overeat. So it wasn't to eat a big breakfast, snacks, and then lunch, and then snacks, and then dinner. I had a sensible breakfast, maybe a little bit of snacking, maybe a lunch throughout the day, a sensible dinner, but I wasn't so rigid in my plan. Another thing, kind of looking back and reflecting, and I made this call after the second day of the cruise, was I didn't partake in too much alcohol. While I did enjoy myself the first, I think it was the first night, the next day, I did feel the effects of that just a little bit. So as a result of that, I kept my alcohol intake on the lighter side. That's a personal choice for me. While I do enjoy kind of letting loose just a little bit, the way that it impacted me in the days following didn't outweigh kind of the enjoyment that I get out of it. So I kept alcohol reasonably sensible. And then finally, I was very active. We did a day on one of the islands where we spent plenty of time on the beach, or Carrie spent plenty of time on the beach kind of soaking in the sun. I spent hours out in the ocean doing snorkeling. That was absolutely incredible. And I think being active really helped me to feel better, whether it was taking stairs instead of the elevator or just getting involved in activities while on the cruise. That absolutely made a difference. Completely different than what I would have done 5 or 6 years ago, where the point of the cruise would be, I'm going to go eat, then I'm going to go nap so that I can rest up so that I can eat more. Even though I made those choices, and all in all, I considered, I think it was a great cruise. I did come back from the cruise. I had lost just a little bit of weight. Again, that wasn't something that I was prioritizing. But even though I did make some of those healthier choices, they did not consume my thoughts there. My thoughts were absolutely in the present with Carrie. And just looking back, I know that I made some better choices. And the real reason that I made those choices is because I have been focused on building habits over these last few years. And that would be my encouragement to you all, is if you are going to be traveling, depending on where you're at, don't put too much stress on yourself either. Focus day in and day out on building healthier habits. I think what you will find is when you reflect on those times where you're maybe out of your element, some of those healthy habits are going to carry over. And that was absolutely the case for Carrie and I over this last weekend. Is I didn't let making good choices overshadow what we were really there for, but I had built habits, so I did make those choices. But with that being said, I am super excited to get into our callers today. We have Cole joining us. Cole, welcome to the show.
Happy to be on the show. I've been following your channel for a good little while now, just ever since, I don't know exactly how YouTube shorts are recommended to people, but it just, I don't know, I would always get your, this is everything I ate in a day. And then I felt, ultimately I was like, I started to look forward to seeing it, and it started kind of affecting my thoughts around, healthy eating and just what you're talking about, not, beating myself up if I do, binge eat at night or something like that. So I'm definitely, interested in the nutrition health journey. So,
man, I don't know how the YouTube algorithm works either. I'm glad that it works the way that it does. And honestly, I love making the videos. Part of the reason that I make them now is absolutely for accountability. It kind of helps keep me honest, but I love when people find them. I love that you found them and are getting something out of them, man. That's high praise. So I really appreciate that. Well, good stuff. So what question do you have for me today?
Yeah. I think if I remember the question I submitted correctly, it was what is a challenge that you found about transitioning more from like traditional employment towards online coaching? And then how have you been able to overcome that?
One of the things that I think about when it comes to coaching people online was There was a little bit of maybe self-doubt, a little bit of imposter syndrome, because I didn't start coaching people until September, October timeframe of 2022. So I've been doing it now for over a year and a half. Man, very quickly approaching 2 years. Crazy how time flies. But I've been doing it full time for a year and a half. And one of the things that I think about when looking back on making that decision was before I started coaching people, I wanted to make sure that I had kind of walked the walk for long enough that I was confident in taking on clients, right? So I lost my weight over the course of 2020 in about a year. And then I maintained that weight for a year. So some of it was, I was just like, I was questioning whether or not I could start coaching people because I always had that imposter syndrome. And then finally, I got with a friend who really encouraged me to say, you don't have to know it all. You just have to be a few steps ahead and look at who you're working with. So I think that is one of the things that has been helpful to me is when I am coaching people, I tend to work with people who were in a similar position to where I was a few years ago, because I can't speak to everything, right? Like if somebody's looking to lose 15 pounds because, they want six-pack abs and, they want to compete in a physique competition, I don't work with those clients because it's not my area of expertise. But when it comes to somebody that's, looking to lose 30, 40 pounds, they can't get out of their own head, maybe formerly athletic, always struggled with yo-yo dieting, I think getting the encouragement that I could speak into their situation because I lived it, that kind of helped me overcome that imposter syndrome a little bit, if that makes sense.
Oh, I definitely hear you. I think kind of along those lines, I definitely notice in your comment section, it's overwhelmingly positive. I feel like, most people really, really do appreciate the authenticity of it. But every now and then you'll see the comment, and I think you tend to pin them as well, of like someone who, oh, what is this guy talking about? Because it's not like you're, like you're saying the like athletic physique, that sort of thing. And so I guess, how do you deal with that sort of thing that, if you do encounter negativity online?
If somebody is really negative, it's kind of like there's a scale to it. If somebody is beyond negative, if somebody says something that crosses a line, man, I'm very quick to block people, right? Like life is too short to let in that really bad negativity. So they just get blocked right away. Some of it comes from a place of empathy, meaning like if somebody is taking time to comment something negative, honestly, I do feel a little bad for them because life's too short to be so negative. And, I do feel a little pity for somebody that is in a place that they got to try to bring other people's down. But then there is part of me, I am not perfect. I say this all the time. Like if you're looking for flaws in me, you don't have to look that far. There are some times where maybe I can be maybe a little petty and do like a clap back or something like that, pin a negative comment to the top, or maybe every once in a while I'll do a video. And that's just because I do that from a place of wanting to encourage people that may see that comment and think that there's truth to it, and let them know that that's not the case. It doesn't have to be, all or nothing. And if we just took a little time to listen and understand where people are at, things are not as black and white as we want to make them.
But still, I mean, even then, it must be like, I don't know. I don't know if I would be able to deal with that sort of, especially because you can't see him. It's a total stranger. I like the response. I have another question, and what you were talking about being on the cruise and deciding not to intermittent fast for a couple of the days. How do you in your day-to-day life make the decision of today I'm going to intermittent fast versus today is OMAD or something like that,
Over time, I have kind of found my way. And when I initially started, I was a little more rigid, meaning I was eating by the clock. When I started losing weight, I was doing either 16 or 18-hour fasts, but just about every day I would stop eating at 8 p.m., and then I would start eating at noon or 2 o'clock if I had switched to the 18-hour fast. And initially, having that structure was helpful to kind of build out the framework, meaning if it was 7:30, I would maybe go have a protein shake and be like, okay, this is the last thing I'm going to eat. And then the next day at noon, even if I wasn't hungry, I would start eating because I just wanted to build that routine. But I feel like after about 6 months to a year, I built the routine enough that I knew eventually or long term I wanted to have flexibility, because that flexibility is what would allow me to stay consistent for years and years and years, which is what I'm looking for, right? Consistent over a long period of time. So now I kind of make those adjustments based off of a few factors, things like, what's going on in the day? Do we have special events? If I'm going to be going to a special event where I know there's going to be not as many nutritious foods or high calorie foods, maybe I am doing one meal so that I don't exceed my calories. And then also I'm looking at like, what are the plans for the day? So on the cruise, 3 out of those 4 days that I didn't fast, one of the things that I was aware of was if I eat too much early in the day, part of the reason that I fast now is I just have more energy when I fast. I'm fasting right now. I feel great. If I eat breakfast early, especially if it's pancakes, waffles, French toast, any of that kind of stuff, I'm going to feel like taking a nap. So I didn't want that to be the case on the cruise, right? I wanted to be doing stuff during the day, whether it be swimming at the pool. So although I did eat breakfast, they were higher protein breakfasts because I don't feel like that's going to leave me as lethargic, still light in my stomach. So I was able to move. So those are kind of some of the things that I think about, is like, what is the plan for the day and how often is this going to come up? Carrie and I don't cruise that often. I think we've been on 3 now. We've been married for 15 years, but we've been together for 22. We've been on 3 cruises, and I love, I don't know. There was an opportunity. This doesn't happen that often. Therefore, I'm going to be a little less rigid, whereas we travel with our family a lot, and there are some times where we go and I do skip quote unquote family breakfast because it's like, I don't need like family breakfast every single week, if that makes sense. So that's some of the thought process that goes into that.
If I'm hearing what you're saying, it sounds like building up the habits first, and then once you have those habits built up, then you're able to take it on a case-by-case basis.
Exactly. And there is a little bit of reasoning that goes into it. I think one of the things, kind of referring back to coaching clients, one of the things that I work on with people is, I don't need you to fast every day, but the real measure of success, and one of the things to think about, is, did you make the decision not to fast, or did it just kind of happen and then you regret it afterwards? And if that's the case, it's like, it's okay to not fast, but it is nice when it's like, I made the decision, because not fasting is not necessarily the failure. It's not following your plan. So if you plan to be flexible, that's how we avoid some of those mindset traps of, I have to fast every day. I didn't fast. I have messed up. What's the point in keeping going? That's where people struggle mostly. So it's like, if you plan on being flexible and then we're flexible, you're following the plan.
Let's say you are planning on fasting, but I don't know, maybe it slips your mind, or you end up eating, and you do experience that sort of regret. I guess, how do you balance that sort of natural, healthy regret of, I wasn't able to meet my plan, versus the more unhealthy, like, it's not, what's the point? It's not worth it.
There are 2 things that I think about. And the first one is I try not to catastrophize, right? So one bad decision isn't going to undo all of the good decisions that I've made. So I do constantly have to remind myself of that. The same way that if you were to eat super unhealthy for a year or 2 at a time and you put on a lot of weight, if you eat good for one day, perfect nutrition and workout, like, are you magically going to be at your destination the next day? Well, no. But the opposite's also true. If you are eating really good and you have one day where you don't follow the plan, it's not all going to unwind. So that's the first thing, is I don't catastrophize. And the second thing is I just kind of look for patterns. So that healthy regret and trying to avoid it in the future, I just look to see, whenever I have a misstep, is there some sort of pattern emerging, and then try to address that. I'm late night snacking. I late night snacked 7 of the last 14 days, right? Like half of the time. If that's the case, okay, why is that? Is it because I'm not eating enough during the day? So looking for patterns there and then making adjustments to kind of the root cause, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I have something else. It's far less serious, but I do have to ask you: beef biltong or salt and pepper pork rinds from Epic?
And so man, that's a tough one. I'm going to go with the biltong, and the reason why is the protein is great. I like to keep things simple. If you simply eat a lot of protein, if you focused on nothing other than that, most of the other things are going to fall in line. It's hard to overeat on carbs and overeat on fats if you're eating plenty of protein. And the reason that I love the biltong, kind of even over regular jerky, is just because the way they season it and cure it, there's hardly any carbs in it. I like the taste. I like the texture. It's really good. There was actually a few people from South Africa that were crew members on the cruise, and I was sure to tell everyone that I saw, like, oh, I love biltong. But I think I would have to choose that.
All right, man. Just because, it seems like earlier in your videos you were eating the pork rind, breaking the fast with the pork rinds more often.
It wasn't until I found the biltong, and then I am absolutely if it wasn't for these videos, I would probably eat the same thing all the time. I do vary what I eat a little bit so that you're not always seeing the same thing, but there will be a few constant.
No, that's like me. I'll eat the same thing for a week, and the people I live with are like, what are you doing? Like, you're having the exact same, not lunch and dinner. I'm like, it tastes good. So why would I not eat it?
Well, good stuff, man. So Cole, again, I really appreciate you taking the time. I have really enjoyed talking with you, man. And again, I appreciate the support and look forward to seeing you in the comment sections, man.
Yeah. Have a good one. Take care. It's been a lovely conversation.
So speaking of seeing Cole in the comment sections, we are now going to go to the portion of the show where we go to the comments section. Like I said, Carrie, the girls, and I over spring break went up to Maggie Valley, North Carolina, and we went to a pancake house. It was Joey's Pancake House, and it was recommended by a lot of people that we eat there, and I did not partake in breakfast on that particular morning, and I made mention of that in the video. And this comment said, dude, you can't just eat pancakes with your kids on vacation. Eating with my family and spending time with my family is absolutely important. But on this particular day, kind of what this viewer didn't see, and part of the reason why I try to make as many videos as possible, is it's hard to just pick out a single instance and say, see there, why did that happen? I kind of look at everything in context. And in the context of this scenario, I had actually eaten breakfast with my family the day before. I wasn't making a video that day. So because I had eaten breakfast the day before, I made the decision that, okay, I want to fast on this day, because in our plans on that day, we were planning on going to a petting zoo, we were planning on going to a park, we were planning on being very active, and most of the items at Joey's Pancake House were those things that if I ate them, it's like, okay, I'm gonna go take a nap now. I'm not gonna be ready to play with the girls at the park. So I made the decision to skip breakfast, the family, and just have black coffee. But that's also because I have built habits and I know when I feel better. Most of the time I feel better when I'm fasting, so I made the decision to fast while I'm on vacation. And I think at the end of the day, there are going to be times where you have to maybe delay or pass up on things. In this case, I passed up on the Joey's Pancake House. I'm going to maybe have to get back there again in the future. We do a lot of things with our family, so missing out on that breakfast, I don't think it's something that I'm not going to have the opportunity to kind of go back on in the future. Thanks again for listening to another episode of the Progress Over Perfection podcast. Remember, we're not looking to lose weight fast, we're looking to lose weight forever. If you have a question or would like to be a caller on the show, please check out the link in the description. Make sure to subscribe on our YouTube channel for clips and shorts of the show, and add us wherever you listen to your podcast. Thanks again for the support, and we will see you next week.